We are live. Welcome, everyone. This is the How to Be a Trophy Wife podcast, and I'm here with the amazing Simone Milasas. I'm really excited for today's conversation. I've been on a lot of your classes lately, Simone, and they're just on fire, and so I'm really looking forward to where we're going to go today. Simone is the she was the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness for a very long time. She's basically the person who took Access Consciousness and made it worldwide and worked with Gary Douglas and Dane here to take it to the 178 or 80 countries that it's in now, and just really was that mover and looked at things from a really different perspective about how are we going to get consciousness into people's hands. So she was really the driving force behind that. She's also the author of The Joy of Business and Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. So she has this amazing series of business classes called The Joy of Business and Business Done Different classes. So that's one topic of focus that she has, along with many other things. She has many businesses and many things going on in her life. So I'm really, really excited to talk to you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Simone.
you for having me here, Julia. Finally, this has been coming and going for a while.
Yeah.
We're here.
We did it. We made it. So this podcast, Simone and I were chit-chatting before we got on the air, and Simone and I were talking about the energy of this podcast, and like, really, what would I like people listening to this podcast to know? What energy would I like to create with this podcast? And I thought that was a really great question that she asked me. And with being a trophy wife, that is such a forbidden energy. Like, that is automatically naughty and bad and something you should never be. And I think that there's so much receiving in the things that we should never be and the things that we've cut out of our life. And so that is something that I kind of just wanted to set the tone after Simone asked me that question. It's like, what would be something that you could receive that would be really like change your life, but you think that that is a wrongness and you can't have it? So,
Can I just there's a comment, a quote that I read this morning, and it's from Albert Camus, who was an old French philosopher, right? And I guess he wasn't exactly the most jovial person in the world, the way he looked at life. But one of his quotes was, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." And I get that that's the energy. When I asked you this morning
yes.
before we went live, that's the energy of what you desired to create. And what
Yeah.
I notice is, over the years, it's like when you truly choose what works for you and you choose, perhaps something that's different, it's something that you go to, throughout the years. If I look at, I've been called the black sheep of my family. It's like, that odd one out, that, oh, she can't make up her mind, all these things that this reality and people around me have projected of me, and verbally, but also energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And when you keep choosing what works for you, and when it doesn't make sense to others, I think that becomes one of the most freeing things that you can choose, and also can become an inspiration. Like, I know before we started this podcast, when I asked you this question, and you said the next day you went to a yoga class and you told this woman that you're a trophy wife, and she went, "Oh, I'd like to do that too." So, and as you were talking, I went, you know what? I like all men, right? I'm one of those women who just adores men, and I think they're absolutely freaking fabulous. And I like men of all ages, except I keep choosing toy boys. And that's also something that is looked at as like, oh, she's a cougar. Yeah, I am. I love it. I enjoy it. Why not? It's like, and so, but that's something that I think, as you said, I'm a trophy wife. And if I go, I keep choosing toy boys, it's something that people go, you can do that? And you're
Exactly.
like, yeah. you can do anything.
Exactly. I tell everybody, like whenever anybody asks me what I do, I used to be like, oh, I do something, you know, access consciousness. Blah, blah. And now I'm like, oh, I'm a trophy wife. Like this like old, like he was like 75 years old, retired police officer was like, in the grocery store, he was like chatting me up and he's like, so it looks like you're a teacher. Are you a teacher? And I'm like, no, I'm a trophy wife. And he's like, oh.
I love it. And the teacher would be so acceptable.
Right.
The teacher's not naughty. The teacher is normal. And you know, when I read this quote this morning, I was like, God, I love that, because we're not normal. None of us are. So why are we trying to maintain normal when we're not? It's like, what would you choose if you were totally being you? And it's also not being like, I am now going to be the most different person in the world and choose against, because it's not choosing against, it's choosing for you. And I notice as you choose for you, it has such a completely different energy about it. And I mean, I'm 54 now, and I told my PT that the other day, my personal trainer, and he went, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I was like, "No, I'm 54." And he went, "Simone," he went, "there's no way in the world." He said, "Your fitness level, your strength, the way you are, the way you act, there's no way in the world I would have said you're 54." So we had this like, "How old do you think I am?" thing, you know, and then someone was saying to me, "Oh, you know, that old saying, if you're only as old as the person that you're shagging." You know, that energy too. And I was like, yeah, I'll go with that. And it's like, what if there, for me, it's like, what are you not choosing based on trying to maintain the normal reality when you're not normal? Age is irrelevant. It really is irrelevant. It's like, I feel better now than I did when I was in my 20s for various reasons, whether it's confidence or the amount of drugs that I took in my 20s, or just being very more clearer on what it is I'd like to choose, you know, and more ambitious in a different way, more ambitious on a bigger scale, and all of that. And it's like it's absolute bullshit what this reality projects upon you of what you should do. It's like, stop listening to it and start choosing what it is that you'd like to choose.
I love that. I love that. I've never actually heard the saying, you're only as old as the person you're shagging. That is, I
Yeah.
like
Well,
that.
I think women who are older use it with if they're shagging younger men.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, you're only as old as the person you're shagging. Okay.
That's great. I like that. That's a good Trophy Wife podcast takeaway.
Yes.
So I mean, something that I really admire about you and really see as a gift that you've chosen is like you have this needlessness with relationships that's really unusual and very fucking cool. So, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can, and I'm not sure how that came about. I will say, okay, so the history of this, I would say, is I had a point of view about relationships, and I was like, I don't do them. I don't see a good one. Why would I do one?
Yeah.
And I used to have, you know, as I was growing up, it's like, you know, of course I would, you know, meet different boys and be like, wow, he's amazing, you know, I want to play with him. And I would typically spend about 3 months with someone, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Goodbye, you know. And my mother, who is not a very nice woman at all, used to call me you're nothing but a little slut. And I was like, huh.
Ouch.
Yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah. Oh yeah, that's just the beginning of it. And then, but
wow.
I was confused, because for me, I was really enjoying this person. Like,
Yeah.
I was having a really nice time and really enjoying this person. And when it got to, I get when it got to the sense of this mundane, or like this, now it's maintenance, and it's like, oh, where are you heading to next? I would be like, I'm sort of done now. Like, I've got another adventure to go to. So it's very much what I used to choose. And for me, I know I resisted being in relationship, as I said, because I didn't see a good one. Now, years, you know, tap forward years later, and I had a conversation with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and he said to me, yeah, but there's no question in that. Like there's, you know, and I realized it's all conclusion. And the one thing I realized, which I think is imperative, is I was looking for somebody else to set an example for myself rather than choosing what worked for me. So I was looking for a reference, and I looked at my parents and I was like, oh, definitely don't desire that. And any of my friends, or I mean, they were great. That worked for them. But if I indulged and put myself in that situation, I went, that doesn't sound like fun to me. It doesn't feel like fun. So and I became very like I left when I was 19 to go overseas and traveled and backpacked for 3 years, and you know,
Wow.
with pretty much no money. A
Yeah.
lot of stories to tell on that adventure. For me, the most important thing to me was to discover the world. I was from school. I was like, I need to see the world. I need to discover the world, and not. I like seeing sites and museums, etc. But it was more just like putting my feet on the ground and on the land and on the earth of every country and city I can, and meeting people and finding out what people chose and why they chose it, and all of that was just so intriguing to me. So choosing a relationship and then to be at home seemed not very important to me. Like I said, I've always enjoyed men, and it's so. I guess my father was very empowering too, that I could create anything. Like he was always saying to me, Simone, this is your life. You need to choose it. Like I'll be here for you, but you need to choose it and keep choosing. And what is it that, you know, he would say, what is it that makes you happy? Whereas my mother would say, I just want you to be happy. But her version meant you need to do everything that I have decided is right. Okay. So whereas dad was just like, what is it that you desire? Like, what is it you want to do? So traveling the world and doing all of this, I did become very independent, is what I would say. And I've never felt like I needed a man to survive. I mean, hence, as you mentioned, the first book I wrote, Joy of Business, I've always loved working. I've always loved business. So it wasn't like I was looking for financial stability. I've also never desired to get married and have kids. There's not 1 ounce, not one molecule in my body that goes, oh no, I didn't have a child. No, I'm good.
Yep.
And marriage thing,
I love
was
having
always,
kids, but I have never
yeah,
once, like wanted to make a baby. It's never occurred to me. That's not what I want. Yeah.
no, that's not what my vagina's for.
No. Things can go in, but I don't want them to come out.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you do want them to come out.
Eventually, yes, that's true.
Not,
Actually,
yeah. You want some motion in there, but yeah. Anyway, moving it along, kids.
I love it.
So I guess I never needed a man, but I enjoyed a man. And I remember at one stage Gary said to me, Simone, sometimes you need to act a little pathetic. And I was like, what? You know? And then there was this very memorable moment I had on a plane, and it was with a friend of mine, Darren, and he, you know, he's a great guy and one of my best mates at the time, and I'm not weak. And I went to get my bag up from up the top of the plane, and he said to me, Simone, do you know that if you ask me, I will move mountains for you? And I looked at him and I was like, there was this moment that I could have done I could have just gone, yeah, you know, thanks so much. I've got it, and got the bag out from the top. And I looked at him, and it sounds silly, but it was such a vulnerable moment to just sit back down in my seat and go, will you please get my bag out from the top? And he went, I'd love to. And that moment he got my bag and passed it to me. And from that moment I went, oh, I haven't been receiving from men the way that I could be receiving from men, like letting a man be a man and me being a woman. And I think that's a really different energy than there's an energy of like needless of a relationship and needless of a man. But then there's another energy of receiving that is just, it takes a bit of courage, and it sounds so weird because if you just go, well, you just receive, it's like there's all these things show up. But there's a level of vulnerability that most of us are not taught, we're not empowered with. So therefore we don't choose it. We choose more so to have our barriers up and create these limitations and create separation. And if you can knock those down, because the only person can knock them down is you, if you can knock them down, then what can show up for everybody is incredible. And, you know, it's funny, I was just making breakfast this morning, and, you know, I have an amazing lover in my life at the moment, and he's been around for a few years. And I was just really grateful that he wasn't around this morning. And I was looking at that, like you said, like that I get to spend time with him, but I don't need to wake up every morning and make breakfast with him. When I do make breakfast with him, it's fun because you're just like, hey, what are we having for breakfast? And it becomes this very, joyous occasion rather than I am not asking for at the moment a relationship where I'm living with somebody. I've been there, done that. I'm not so sure I would do it again. I might. Never say never. But at the moment, I really like the space in my life. And when I give myself that space in my life, then therefore, when I'm with someone, I can enjoy them, I perceive like in this totality.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of the essence of what I wanted you to talk about. And I think you took us on the whole journey, because a lot of people can't be alone because they can't be alone with their own head. They can't be alone with who they are. They can't be alone and have some space and silence because their judgments of themselves are so strong and painful that they don't want that kind of space and silence. And if you can be alone with yourself and have that space, that is really a superpower.
Yeah, and I also think it's you become very used to what you were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having that, like allowing yourself that space. And I mean, I always say man cave is a real thing. Okay. Let a man have his man cave. Like he needs his space. And men and women, we process things in a different way. And I get it. This is a generalization. Some men are more like women and some, women are more like men. But in general, it's like, because I require space. And a man, he'll watch video. I know so many men, he'll just spend a day watching playing video games or, like watching movies or doing something that's just on their own so that they can process stuff. And so many women go to, oh, what have I done wrong? You haven't done anything wrong. It's like, give them the space. It's like, maybe ask them a question and be like, hey, is there, is there anything I can contribute? No. Okay, cool. Go about and do your own stuff, allow that space so that you can have something greater. And what I'm going to suggest too is, what are you not choosing that you could be choosing? Because if you are only functioning from what you chose yesterday and you're comfortable with that, then you're using that as a reference point. And I'll give you an example. It's like we've got a class coming up in El Lugar in Costa Rica soon, and I'm co-facilitating it with Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, who, if you know Gary and Dane, it's like, Jesus, the first time I ever co-facilitated with them, it was like, talk about my heart nearly coming out of my chest and like breaking into a sweat and just being like, oh my God, And I have done it plenty of times now. And there's certain topics that I'm like, yep, easy. And one of the classes that we're co-facilitating is called Benevolent Capitalism. And I actually just did a podcast with Gary the other day about it. It's not released yet, but it will be soon. And I said to him, I had this moment where I was going to call him and say, hey, I need to come off the bill card sort of thing. Let's make it you and Dane do it, and I'll come off. And then I went, wow, why would I choose that? Like, what's up in my world? And I realized that, it's like, wow, why does it make me cry? It's interesting. Being a benevolent capitalist, I think is so integral to changing our world. And I started to look at, am I being that? Because I don't ever want to facilitate a class if I'm not walking my talk, right? So I started to look at it, and I was listening to these old podcasts, and Steve and Stissa Bowman have released a book years ago called Benevolent Capitalism, which I think hardly anyone's bought it. And I was flicking through it and looking at things, and I realized that there was this moment where I was going to, what I'm not, rather than what I am. And I went, no, Simone, you got to lean into this. So I've sort of been checklisting myself and going, okay, how am I looking at this? And what could I change here? Or what could I choose here? And instead of calling and saying, hey, let's just be Gary and Dane, I went, okay, no, I need to lean into this. I need to lean into what else can I be here? Because this is what I'm asking for myself. Like, this is what I'm asking to be in the world. So let's facilitate this class and see what we can invite others to be, whilst I'm also gaining so much awareness with this and leaning into it. And Julia, I think that's the what I'm asking is that courage that you lean into a different possibility every day, and then you'll actually become needless in relationships, because you're not leaning on somebody else. You're enjoying somebody else, but you're not leaning on them. So what could you choose today that you weren't willing to choose yesterday? And what's the worst thing that can happen, you know?
Totally. I went through, for those of you who don't know, I've been married for 8 years. And I went through a period where I decided that I'm married now. I'm going to stop creating my life. And that was not a good choice, because I got so bored and so needy and when I'm bored and needy, it's not pretty. And it's like, and now I'm creating my life again, and it's wonderful, but it's really that. It's like, a whole lot of people think that once you get married, like, it's like, okay, I've accomplished my life. I don't have to create it anymore. I've created the ultimate. And it's like, that does not work for an infinite being.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. So I learned that the hard way, but it's like, and then it's like, but now that I'm like creating so many different things and having such a good time, it's like you said, it's not a need. It's like Anthony's a gift in my life. He's another like contributive energy. He's a line of energy that comes into my life every day.
And that's what a relationship should be. A relationship should be a gift, not a burden.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Wow. Well, I'm gonna just like thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation.
You're welcome.
I feel like
So here, can I just say something here?
yeah.
This moment here where you're like, you have no idea where else to go, right?
No.
How often, when there's that place of I have no idea where else to go, do we reference something and look at our past, or look at, like, try and find that, rather than going, okay, what else is possible beyond this? It's my favorite question at the moment.
Oh, I love that
Because
question.
every choice we make actualizes a different future. And, I've just been listening to a podcast this morning with RFK, and I can't remember the guy's name, Lee, someone. And it's so political of what he's talking about, and the history of the politics in America and Russia, etc. And he's got so much information, RFK. It's incredible. And this morning I went, wow, I haven't been paying enough attention to politics, because politics is a way that we can change the world. And also, I mean, I've seen politics do, fear mongering amongst people, etc. And I've sort of gone, oh, put it aside and gone, well, that's not my life. It's like, I'm choosing XYZ, so I'll keep choosing this. But do you know what? If we're avoiding anything, we're not really contributing to it. So I started asking this morning, it's like, well, what can I contribute to the politicians all over the world, so that all the truths and the lies show up, And it's like, and start asking for these, statesmen who are stewards of the land and stewards of the people to show up in our world, because this is our planet. And it's like, we got to start leaning into something different.
Yeah.
Rather than going, okay, I don't know where to go to next. Okay, you don't know where to go to next? Ask a question.
Yeah.
What else is possible? What else is possible beyond this? What else can I choose today that I wasn't willing to choose yesterday? Like, if we all step up and be absolutely everything that we can be in every area of our life, like whether it's relationships, business, money, with your body. I mean, you're not going to survive on this planet without your beautiful, amazing body, like all of it and more. Then what else would you choose? Like, choose something. Choose something today that you thought you would never choose.
Yeah. When I was well, growing up, I grew up in a really political family. My grandfather ran for the NDP in Canada, which is sort of the most like left-wing party, the most democratic, like socialist kind of energy. And he ran 5 times, so like every 4 years, and he lost. So he had like 20 years of losing, but he always ran, and our family was like really politically active. And so I would like put my head up, like, even when I was really little, I was like looking at like what are they talking about and what's going on, and I was so fascinated by it. And then when I was 17, I did the like thing where you go to your nation's capital. So in Canada, I went to Ottawa, and I went to on this week-long camp, and we went to the parliament and watched and everything. And I had like there was different politicians that my family knew and that we really supported. But I watched them, and even, like especially the ones that my family knew, and all of them, and they weren't, they were so about the rightness of their point of view, and they were so about themselves, and like with this with the idea, the image that they were for other people. And I just didn't feel that energy there at all. And I was going to go into politics, and and that's what I wanted to do with my life. And I basically, that week, I was like, I'm not doing this. I just don't believe in this. There's no place here for me. I have to find a different way to change the world than this, because I don't see this working. And then when RFK ran and I started listening to him, I was just, I mean, the first time I started, when he was running, and I listened to like an hour thing with him, I was just bawling, because I was like, I want to go back to politics. I want to be a part of this again. There's a new wave, something is changing, and I want to see the world change through this.
Yeah. And it's funny when you said that was it your grandfather who kept running? Sorry, yeah. And you said, he lost for 20 years. It's like he didn't get in, but maybe he didn't lose. Like, what change did he create? Do you know what I mean? Like I pray to every God that exists that RFK gets in, because if he does, he'll change the world, not just America. And unfortunately, America is, we all look up to America in a weird ass way. And you guys have not had governments in place that makes any country feel safe. Like, coming from Australia, it's like, and the discussions I've had with my dad he died many, many years ago, but every president, it sets a tone. It sets a tone for the world. And if RFK gets in, it's going to be incredible. Now, if RFK doesn't get in, he's still won in so many ways, because
I know.
Conversations. And we need to keep the conversations going of what needs to change in every area, without being like conspiracy theories or this fighting, but just keep these conversations going. I mean, for me, I know with this podcast, it's like even the conversation of being a woman, and the conversation of being a man, and what that is in the world, and how can we contribute to each other and not create this fight or this separation or a conclusionary reality, but create something that is so empowering for every single being on the planet. It's like, what is that? What's that?
Absolutely. I'll share this with those who would like it. Gary gave this clearing on a podcast, or on a class, to run every single day. So it's in my calendar, and it pops up every day. It's everything that I've ever been in any lifetime that doesn't allow RFK Jr. to win this election, destroy and uncreate it all. So I've been running that, and it's been changing a lot of things. So I share that with all of you listening.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Because who have we been? What have we been in the world? Why are you here right now? Like, I always find that interesting. We all chose to be born on this planet at this time. What for? Are we actually choosing everything that we could choose?
Yeah. Yeah. Now's the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Well, Trophy Wife has never gotten political before. This is fun. I like it.
There you go. There's a new thing for Trophy Wives every day. But it's the new space. Let's go.
It is. Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been a beautiful conversation. I can't wait to I know that some of you are watching live and some of you will be watching in the future, but I would really look forward to sharing this around, because this is just the kind of conversations that we need to be having, and there's such an easier, lighter, greater way of doing so many things. And thank you for coming on and just sharing the things that you've done that are so different.
Just the beginning, Julia, just the beginning. Thank you so much for having me. It's absolute pleasure. And I'll see you soon, I think.
Awesome. Yes, I'll see you in a couple weeks in Costa Rica.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Bye, Simone. And bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.